Making headlines for this week of May 26th, exposing elitists. 2 European politicians take aim at Eurocrats in aftermath of Manchester and ahead of UK election. Cabal corruption. Brazil's president faces his own impeachment after leading a coup to impeach former president. Game of Thrones. Western analysts attempt to discredit China's economic growth, but the observant followers will know much more. And dangerous and deadly, more information exposing the accelerated agenda to launch 5G, and one country already using and testing it.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. In the wake of what appears to be yet another desperate false flag incident in Manchester in the United Kingdom, there are 2 stories worth noting about this particular incident. We start first within the UK, where campaigning is continuing leading up to an election in a couple of weeks. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn appears to be sending what some may consider to be mixed signals, although it also appears that he may understand, at least on some level, that the wars his country has supported abroad have contributed to the terrorism-related events that are being experienced at home. According to a London Guardian article by Heather Stewart and Rowena Mason on May 26th, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn will resume electioneering with emphasis on links between terrorism at home and wars abroad. The longtime peace campaigner and former chair of the Stop the War Coalition will also argue that it is the responsibility of government to ensure that our foreign policy reduces rather than increases the threat to this country. Corbyn will say, many experts, including professionals in our intelligence and security services, have pointed to the connections between wars our government has supported or fought in other countries and terrorism here at home. That assessment in no way reduces the guilt of those who attack our children. Those terrorists will forever be reviled and held to account for their actions. But an informed understanding of the causes of terrorism is an essential part of an effective response that will protect the security of our people that fights rather than fuels terrorism. He will argue that the government should admit the war on terror had failed and rethink its approach. He is being met with heavy criticism. According to the article, Ben Wallace, a Conservative security minister, criticized Corbyn's comments as crass and appallingly timed and defended the government's record on security spending. He needs to get his history book out, Wallace told BBC Radio 4's Today program. These people hate our values, not our foreign policy. Tim Farron, the Liberal Democrat leader, was quoted as saying that, I don't agree with what he says, but I disagree even more, that now is the time to say it. That's not leadership. It's putting politics before people at a time of tragedy. From one end of the spectrum to the other, it might seem obvious who is playing the cabal game and who isn't. Over in Poland, the Polish president appears to be finding the courage to stand up and speak out as well, saying enough is enough. As far back as March of 2016, the Radio Poland news website was reporting that, signaling what appeared to be a shift in government policy, Prime Minister Beata Szydło said, I do not see how Poland could take in immigrants at the moment. The article continues. The previous government vowed to take in refugees. It agreed to accept several thousand people who could come to Poland on a voluntary basis. A total of 28 European Union countries agreed to it to solve this problem through relocation. But I say it very clearly. I do not see how Poland could take on any immigrants in the present circumstances, Szydło told the Superstacja broadcaster. Government spokesman Rafał Bocznik said the current system of checks on refugees coming to Europe from the Middle East was not working efficiently. We cannot allow a situation to develop whereby the events that are now happening in Western Europe spread to Poland. Many such events have taken place in the past few months, and we want to protect Polish citizens from that, Bocznik added. Those comments were made shortly after a series of blasts that happened in Brussels that killed over 30 people and injuring 250. And again, this is back in 2016. In April of that same year, last year, Nick Gutteridge, writing for the London Express, reported that EU migrant relocation plan is dead as Poland refuses to take in thousands of asylum seekers. Fast forward to present day, and several more European attacks have occurred over the past year, and it is becoming clear that Poland had enough foresight to see what was happening and took steps to protect its borders and people. A video has crossed my path, and I am trying to find out the exact date these comments were made. I have so far been unable to confirm the actual date, but the video was posted on a YouTube channel called The Last Stand on May 26th, and claims that the following comments were made after the recent events in Manchester. Comments on the YouTube channel page state the following. France and Germany recently stated that Poland should be forced to receive some of Europe's new inhabitants, and this is her response, one that actually reflects the opinions of the people. Poland also has a booming birth rate, unlike most European countries, so Brussels, France, and Germany cannot use that excuse against Poland to get what they want. The English subtitles quote Prime Minister Szydło as saying that we are not going to take part in the madness of the Brussels elitists. We want to help people, not the political elites. I have the courage to say, and I have the courage to ask all European political elites a question. Where are you headed, Europe? Rise from your knees and from your lethargy, or you will be crying over your children every day. If you cannot see this, that today the danger from terrorism is a fact that can hurt every country in Europe, and if you think that Poland should not defend itself, you are going hand in hand with those who point this weapon against Europe and against all of us. It needs to be told clearly and directly. This is an attack on Europe, on our cultures, and on our traditions. Why am I talking about that? All of us in this room have to answer another question, and all people in Europe also have to answer this question. Do we want politicians who claim that we have to get used to attacks and who describe terrorist attacks as incidents? Or do we want strong politicians who can see a danger and can fight it against it efficiently? The EU elitists and NATO leadership may have breathed a sigh of relief with the election of Macron in France, but with Poland now making gestures of challenging Western hegemony, their comfort does not appear to have lasted a long time. If NATO was not concerned about Poland before, this action may very well give them a cause for concern, although it no doubt will generate much support among the general populations of Europe. Although CVN has been reporting this for almost 5 years, more and more people are finally starting to have the courage to come out and validate more and more that NATO is a mere tool being used by the US to keep its presence in Europe. RT reported on May 25th the following. NATO exists for the same reasons it did when it was first founded, to make sure the Americans stay in Europe, keep the Russians out, and keep the Germans down. Jim Jatras, government relations and former U.S. diplomat and GOP Senate policy advisor, told RT News. President Trump has arrived in Brussels for what are claimed to be informal talks while an estimated 6,000 protesters in the Belgian capital make their grievances known to the European and NATO leadership. Jatras was quoted as saying the following: "Let's be clear about something, that NATO means the US, and that these other countries are not really allies. They are satellites. Without a US commitment to NATO, there is no NATO." Trump was very clear during the campaign that he thought NATO was obsolete, that it did not really contribute to American security. Of course, that is the honest truth. Look what happened in Manchester a couple of days ago. That is the real threat to Europe. How is NATO dealing with that? I think what they are doing is celebrating, in effect, the reversal of the position Trump took during the election campaign. Instead of being a critic of NATO or considering NATO at best obsolete and probably dangerous to American security, instead he seems to have been sucked into the establishment position on NATO, and I am sure they are very, very happy about that. When asked if protesters have a reason to be angry, Jatras replied, stating that they have reason to be angry. The fact of matter is that there is such a strong consensus of the centrist parties in Europe, the same establishment parties that opposed Brexit, that opposed the election of Marine Le Pen, frankly opposed Trump when he was a candidate that control all the levers of power in the European countries that are only too happy to hand over their sovereignty to the deep state in Washington and let America, or rather the people who run the establishment in America, not really ordinary Americans, decide their security questions, even though it is not in their national interest to do so. They have no agenda on fighting terrorism. NATO exists for the same reasons it did when it was first founded, which was to make sure the Americans stay in Europe, keep the Russians out, and keep the Germans down. NATO is a mechanism for geopolitical and security control of the continent, and it has only one raison d'être, reason to exist, and that is confronting Russia. Russia is the enemy. And again, how is that in America's security interests? More tremors are occurring across Europe and Eastern Europe, and we'll look at a few of those in next week's newscast. In other geopolitical news, in Brazil, the global cabal appears to be in trouble in this country once again. Listeners may recall last year, just before the Olympics, a coup was staged against former President Dilma Rousseff. Rousseff was replaced by Michel Temer, who is known for his connections to the global cabal and allegedly also to the CIA and other groups. Temer led the revolt against Rousseff, claiming that her alleged corruption was grounds for impeachment. The campaign for impeachment proceeded, leading to her removal and the installment of Temer as president. Rousseff has consistently stated her innocence of the charges against her. Temer has long been accused of his own corruption, despite leading a campaign to clean up corruption after Rousseff. Reading between the lines, one might interpret this to mean that he was attempting to undo everything that was possibly being done to remove the global cabal. What goes around comes around, and now Temer is finding himself in a very similar situation. RT is reporting, however, on May 25th that the owner of one of the biggest beef exporting businesses in the world is testifying against Brazil's President Temer, and this shows the scale of public dissatisfaction. Latin America expert James Petrus from Binghamton University told RT. The Brazilian capital has been in the grip of violent unrest, with police deploying tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray against protesters. The reason behind these mass demonstrations is the policy of current President Temer, who came into power after tossing out Rousseff. One of his main promises was to fight corruption and improve Brazil's struggling economy. However, the economy continues to worsen, while corruption is out of control. Public discontent exploded last week when Temer found himself at the center of a bribery scandal. RT spoke with Petras to ask him if it is likely that Temer will be impeached. Petras was quoted as saying that it is very likely. It is a question of time, whether it is weeks or a few months. Temer is on his way out. He has taken power illegally by the opinion of most people. His seizure of power with the impeachment of the previous president. He is engaged in a large-scale privatization program which alienates nationalists. Unemployment has doubled in the last 4 months. He has been involved deeply in corruption scandals involving his cabinet ministers, his closest supporters in Congress. I think the combination of corruption, social and economic problems with the labor force, the employment situation, and finally the fact that he is not an elected president, the fact that he was able to manipulate Congress to secure the impeachment, I think all these factors together and his stubbornness in owning up to the corruption has finally turned the tide. I don't think he has more than 10% of the electorate at this time. When asked the same question, Dr. Francisco Dominguez, the head of Latin American Studies at Middlesex University, was quoted as saying that the government is imploding and the level of corruption is just unbelievable. The people are very angry. They were taken away their right to vote for the president that they elected due to the coup, or the impeachment as they call it over there. Now the people who were supposed to be fighting Dilma Rousseff because of corruption are absolutely corrupt themselves. The level of corruption is really reaching incredible levels. People around him, everybody, including Aécio Neves, the presidential candidate, who disputed the presidency as a candidate with Dilma Rousseff, is also centrally involved. People are being imprisoned. People are being arrested, and the amount of money that is being mentioned in the media is very partial in many respects. The government is unlikely to survive, regardless of whether there is violence or not. The mass protest is going to be so powerful from now on, and the people will not settle for anything else but direct elections. Lisa Alves, writing for the Rio Times on May 23rd, offered some evidence of corruption, reporting that executives from Brazilian meatpacking giant JBS told federal prosecutors that the company paid politicians like current Senate President Inúncio Oliveira and former Foreign Relations Minister and current Senator José Serra to obtain benefits through legislation passed by Congress. According to the executives, Oliveira received 5 million Brazilian real to make changes in a legislative decree issued by the executive, which could potentially jeopardize the properties of JNF, JBS's parent holding company, if approved. Oliveira was the sponsor of the decree. We went to the finance and planning ministries. I looked for senators to sensitize them. We got nowhere, I said. Then there's only one way, paying a bribe. JNF's Institutional Relations and Government Director, Ricardo Sold, told prosecutors. According to Sold, after speaking to Oliveira, the transfer of 5 million real was agreed upon, which he said was paid as donations that had nothing to do with electoral contributions. Of course, it does not help much when a leader with a reputation for corruption calls on the military to protect him from the awakening masses. In another article by Alves on May 25th, she reported that the decision by Temer to call in the country's armed forces to try to control the protest of more than 45,000 that had gathered at Brasília's Esplanade on May 24th was widely criticized. The government justified the action, saying that the decision was taken because there weren't enough agents from the national force to contain the violence. The article continues. The Occupy Brasilia demonstration began peacefully, protesting the social security and labor reforms and calling for the ousting of Temer. In the middle of the afternoon, however, a small group of protesters tried to force their way into some of the ministry's buildings. Although this has not been confirmed, it is becoming a very common trick at protests, where police officers will dress up as protesters and actively begin to stir up trouble to justify more police or military action. Such was the case a few years back at the Toronto G20 summit, when police officers were caught being agents provocateurs, intentionally planted into a crowd to stir up trouble. Although it is always so unfortunate when things come to these levels, we have to try our best to hold the vision that anything that is not in authenticity or integrity at this time is being exposed. The people of Brazil are clearly seeing it now, and it appears that the attempts by the global cabal to break Brazil and deliver a blow to the BRICS alliance is failing. If it turns out that Temer is impeached and removed from office, it is unclear at this time whether or not Rousseff will be given the opportunity to be reinstated and allowed to finish out her term according to the will of the people. For now, however, it does appear to be a very good sign that the Brazilian people, like the peoples of numerous other countries in the past and present, are standing up and speaking out against the corruption of officials and leadership attempting to force controls upon a nation of people who are ready and prepared to defend their choice to have something other than that being imposed upon them. In a few financial news items for the week, most CVN listeners are more than aware that the mainstream media has an agenda that goes far beyond the authentic reporting of events, arguably falling into a category that could diplomatically be called pathetic parody. The Western business media have for several years been trying to sell the message to Western stock market investors that China's economy has been falling and bordering a recession, if not actually in a recession. For anyone who has done any kind of research on the current geoeconomic activities of China, one might be left scratching one's head as to how the Western business media could be so wrong. China has its infrastructure investment bank, and over 70 countries are now members, with over 50 of those listed as founding members. China has its own gold exchange now in Shanghai, and it is alleged that they now have a gold-backed currency. They are buying up massive amounts of gold for their reserves. They are selling massive amounts of U.S. treasuries to pay for that gold, in all probability, like Russia has been doing itself. China has been making massive trade deals with countries worldwide that are now excluding the U.S. dollar. China is also buying up massive amounts of real estate worldwide, and perhaps most importantly, China is leading the push to rebuild the Silk Road trading network, now being called the Belt and Road Initiative. Yet, according to a BRICS Post article on May 26th, Chinese markets appeared to shrug off the Moody's ratings downgrade on Thursday and Friday as they rallied, led by the Shanghai Composite, which closed up 1.43%. Amid media criticism that its ratings assessments are neither objective nor scientific, Moody's on Friday said that it does not believe the government's economic reforms will be enough to wholly stop the growing national debt. Earlier this week, Moody's downgraded China's sovereign ratings from AA3, which is a very low credit risk, to A1, being just stable. Some analysts do not appear to be buying the message, however. The article adds that market analysts said that Moody's does not fully understand conditions in China or the government's reforms. China's finance ministry called the ratings downgrade illogical and absolutely groundless. National media said that Moody's was applying double standards, with some even hinting at a colonialist mentality to rating non-Western countries. On Friday, Moody's acknowledged that China had made progress in its reforms to control debt, but said that these measures will slow debt and not sufficiently eradicate it. The agency warned that there could be another downgrade soon. Of course, there is absolutely no way to eradicate fractional reserve debt because it is created out of thin air, and CVN has reported on this on many occasions in the past. So a Western-based rating agency trying to claim that anyone can eradicate debt is speaking from a position of pure fabrication and illusion. It would seem that someone at Moody's is attempting to keep investors from learning the truth about what is going on in the East, that a new financial paradigm is beginning to emerge, and that it is in contradiction to Western hegemony, and Western markets need to keep selling a certain message as long as possible, so they can continue to sucker investors who are not willing to take the time to see and understand what is really happening. A number of years ago, as the European Union began implementing the euro currency among member states, a number of countries independently began to hold referenda, choosing instead to keep their own currency, even while staying a member of the European Union. What may have seemed like a bad decision at that time has actually proven to be the wiser decision, given what is now happening around the Union at this time. However, in what may be another stunt to help destabilize the EU, RT is reporting on May 25th that even though Denmark has already voted against dropping the krona for the euro, the European Commission may coerce the country to adopt the European single currency, reports German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. The notes leaked from last week's meeting in Strasbourg revealed the EU Commission wants all 27 members of the bloc to adopt the euro by 2025. Officials from the EU are reportedly seeking to draw up a euro budget able to incorporate a fixed tax payment from all the member states. The raised cash is for investment across the bloc. Reading between the lines, what this would seem to suggest is that the EU is attempting to stage a form of bail-in, meaning that they are seeking to get a hold of financial resources from these countries to continue transferring to those who are already profiting excessively from the plundering of other EU member states via austerity measures and other actions. The article continues, the euro is the sole currency for 19 members of the bloc. The remaining countries, including Bulgaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Hungary, Poland, Romania, Sweden, and the United Kingdom, that is currently in the process of quitting the EU, do not use the euro as the main national currency. The EU Commission is reportedly due to hold a meeting regarding the future of the euro on May 31st. The cabinet wants to re-establish control over the euro, according to the German tabloid. Of course, 2025 is quite a way down the road, and most CVN listeners share a similar belief and feeling that significant changes are currently underway that may make this story meaningless. What this story does highlight, however, is the growing desperation among the controllers of Europe. They must be losing in other areas and are now being forced to find new avenues to exert power while stealing more wealth away from the general population, allowing heavier austerity measures to be imposed, ultimately leading to an increasingly more angry and volatile general population. While the Western economy slowly grinds to a halt, and another economic paradigm rises up to replace it, uncertain investors appear to be turning to Bitcoin as a possible investment. CVN reported last week on the latest developments with the cryptocurrency. It was to be expected that the currency would rise and fall according to the types of investors involved. As of May 29th, Bitcoin has experienced yet another correction, although from what I think I understand about the currency so far, the correction may be the result of certain large-scale investors who are seeking to create these corrections to scare people off from investing in the currency and thus giving it more legitimacy. RT reported in its article, that on Monday, Bitcoin was trading at $2,179 per Bitcoin, down $612 from last Wednesday's all-time high of $27.91, according to CoinDesk data. The correction was actually quite brief. The prices today are still higher than that of a week ago. Bobby Lee, CEO of BTCC, a major Bitcoin exchange, told CNBC. I think the pullback was just a profit-taking, a correction from the skyrocketing prices of last week, he added. Bitcoin's market cap fell from $40.49 billion on Thursday to $36.48 billion. Analysts' forecasts for Bitcoin differ significantly. While some predict a major correction, others say it's going to hit $6,000. There is a lot of fresh liquidity flowing into Bitcoin thanks to a surge in interest among investors in Asia, notably Japan and Korea, coupled with a resolution to the scaling debate. I would not be surprised to see the Bitcoin price doubling again to around $6,000 by the end of the year. Aurélien Menant, CEO of Gatecoin, a regulated cryptocurrency exchange, told CNBC. Upon checking the Coinbase.com website on the evening of May 29th, I observed the price as being in the range of approximately $2,300 for one Bitcoin, suggesting that the recovery was already underway. CVN will be following developments with this currency more closely over the coming months to assist those who may be able and willing to invest in Bitcoin. Over to some technology, science, and health-related news together this week. CVN reported some time back on the plan to launch what is known as the 5th generation, or 5G, communications protocol worldwide next year, or within at least a couple of years. Recently, I explained a bit about 5G, and I'm realizing that it is becoming vital, if not urgent, to address this further. This is information that needs to be shared. There are different versions on the Internet of videos claiming to offer all that you need to know about 5G. The following is one such video, but as we continue with this story, you will realize that this is not exactly all you need to know. It will give you an introductory understanding of how it works, however.
Every new generation of wireless networks delivers faster speeds and more functionality to our smartphones. 1G brought us the very first cell phones, 2G let us text for the first time, 3G brought us online, and 4G delivered the speeds that we enjoy today. But as more users come online, 4G networks have just about reached the limit of what they're capable of at a time when users want even more data for their smartphones and devices. Now we're headed toward 5G, the next generation of wireless. It will be able to handle 1,000 times more traffic than today's networks, and it'll be up to 10 times faster than 4G LTE. Just imagine downloading an HD movie in under a second, and then let your imagination run wild. 5G will be the foundation for virtual reality, autonomous driving, the Internet of Things, and stuff we can't even yet imagine. But what exactly is a 5G network? Well, the truth is, experts can't tell us what 5G actually is, because they don't even know yet. But right now, there are 5 brand new technologies emerging as the foundation of 5G. Millimeter waves, small cells, massive MIMO, beamforming, and full duplex. First up, technology number 1, millimeter waves. Your smartphone and other electronic devices in your home use very specific frequencies on the radio frequency spectrum, typically those under 6 gigahertz. But these frequencies are starting to get more crowded. Carriers can only squeeze so many bits of data on the same amount of radio frequency spectrum. As more devices come online, we're going to start to see slower service and more dropped connections. The solution is to open up some new real estate. So researchers are experimenting with broadcasting on shorter millimeter waves, those that fall between 30 and 300 gigahertz. This section of spectrum has never been used before for mobile devices, and opening it up means more bandwidth for everyone. But there is a catch. Millimeter waves can't travel well through buildings or other obstacles, and they tend to be absorbed by plants and rain. To get around this problem, we'll need technology number 2, small cell networks. Today's wireless networks rely on large, high-powered cell towers to broadcast their signals over long distances. But remember, higher frequency millimeter waves have a harder time traveling through obstacles, which means if you move behind one, you lose your signal. Small cell networks would solve that problem, using thousands of low-power mini base stations. These base stations would be much closer together than traditional towers, forming a sort of relay team to transmit signals around obstacles. This would be especially useful in cities. As the user moved behind an obstacle, his smartphone would automatically switch to a new base station in better range of his device, allowing him to keep his connection. Next up, technology number 3, massive MIMO. MIMO stands for multiple input, multiple output. Today's 4G base stations have about a dozen ports for antennas that handle all cellular traffic. But massive MIMO base stations can support about 100 ports. This could increase the capacity of today's networks by a factor of 22 or more. Of course, massive MIMO comes with its own complications. Today's cellular antennas broadcast information in every direction at once, and all of those crossing signals could cause serious interference. Which brings us to technology number 4, beamforming. Beamforming is like a traffic signaling system for cellular signals. Instead of broadcasting in every direction, it would allow a base station to send a focused stream of data to a specific user. This precision prevents interference, and it's way more efficient. That means stations could handle more incoming and outgoing data streams at once. Here's how it works. Say you're in a cluster of buildings and you're trying to make a phone call. Your signal is ricocheting off of surrounding buildings and crisscrossing with other signals from users in the area. A massive MIMO base station receives all of these signals and keeps track of the timing and the direction of their arrival. It then uses signal processing algorithms to triangulate exactly where each signal is coming from and plots the best transmission route back through the air to each phone. Sometimes it'll even bounce individual packets of data in different directions, off of buildings or other objects to keep signals from interfering with each other. The result is a coherent data stream sent only to you. Which brings us to technology number 5, full duplex. If you've ever used a walkie-talkie, you know that in order to communicate, you have to take turns talking and listening. That's kind of a drag. Today's cellular base stations have that exact same holdup. A basic antenna can only do one job at a time, either transmit or receive. This is because of a principle called reciprocity, which is the tendency for radio waves to travel both forward and backward along the same frequency. To understand this, it helps to think of a wave like a train loaded up with data. The frequency it's traveling on is like the train track. And if there's a second train trying to go in the opposite direction on the same track, you're going to get some interference. Up until now, the solution has been to have the trains take turns, or to put all the trains on different tracks or frequencies. But you can make things a lot more efficient by working around reciprocity. Researchers have used silicon transistors to create high-speed switches that halt the backward roll of these waves. It's kind of like a signaling system that can momentarily reroute two trains so that they can get past each other. That means there's a lot more getting done on each track a whole lot faster. We're still working out many of the kinks with millimeter waves, small cell networks, massive MIMO, beamforming, and full duplex. In fact, all of 5G is still a work in progress. It will likely include other new technologies too. And making all of these systems work together will be a whole other challenge. But if experts can figure that out, ultra-fast 5G service could arrive in the next 5 years.
The video stated that this technology will be ready in about 5 years. I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes. 3 of the technologies mentioned at least represent potential for great concern: millimeter waves, small cells, and beam forming. As we heard, 5G is moving into a new frequency range, 30 to 300 gigahertz. This is the millimeter range of frequency transmission. However, as the video noted, there are challenges because of various limitations with these frequencies, such as not being able to go through walls or other objects with ease. The video claims that small cells will then be necessary. Although many people will cheer and celebrate this so-called advancement for living in our current paradigm, it is a technology that represents a threat to the emerging paradigm. Small cells can represent anything from a specifically constructed tower to any device that has the word smart in front of it, such as a smart meter or a smart phone, smart TV, smart refrigerator, and so on. What this means is that devices in any home can, in theory, become transmitters for a 5G signal. With all the signals bouncing off each other, the beam-forming technology becomes a tool to ensure that signals can be delivered to specific receiving devices. Virginia Farver, in an interview with the Common Sense Show, published on February 26th on YouTube, claims your cell phone is a death trap and that 5G is a killer. Here are a few excerpts from that 47-minute interview.
What's going on? I mean, are we being spied on from everywhere? What's the danger? I'll just let you decide where you want to take it.
I keep talking about this smart grid. And what it really is, Dave, is a surveillance grid. And, of course, they can get information from inside your home, but also the infrastructure that comes along with it that is deployed throughout our cities and even in our rural areas is all part of this surveillance. A lot of people know my story about the heparin cell tower on the SDSU campus, which created a brain cancer cluster on campus. It's connected to over 70 rural fire stations in San Diego and Riverside counties. The actual cell tower itself is mission control for San Diego Gas and Electric. And San Diego Gas and Electric is also behind putting these 360-degree surveillance cameras on all of the microwave links throughout Riverside and San Diego counties.
Other than just capturing our good looks, what are they up to? I think this is a direct attack upon the people and their health.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what FirstNet is all about. They want to get full coverage, blanketed coverage in the United States with this, and rural areas are their target. So literally everybody that says, oh, I'll just move out of the city and I'll move into the county or I'll move way up where it's remote, well, there is going to be no remote. So this is what I want people to understand.
A lot of people do avoid living near cell transmission towers for obvious reasons, but you're saying now that it's going to be impossible to escape the dangers associated with this technology?
Yes. Dave, I actually found documents by the Iridium Corporation. I talked to an expert about this, and he told me the Iridium Corporation, which is usually satellites, but, the satellites are working in conjunction with all this other grid stuff on the grounds. But the Iridium Corporation is actually the Bin Laden family. So, I want people to understand that, we've got ourselves in a lot of trouble.
So you're saying the Bin Laden family owns Iridium? Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
How does Iridium connect to all this surveillance again?
I found documents about FirstNet, and the FirstNet's going to piggyback off of the grid. I want everybody to know. And like I said, rural areas are their main coverage points. They want to make sure we've got full coverage. They have stated in some of these documents they want to cover every square inch of the United States in these emissions.
So in other words, everyone becomes a victim.
Correct.
Well, here's what doesn't make sense to me. The purveyors of this technology, now not the Bin Laden family, but the mid-level managers who know what's going on, and they're permitting this to happen. Don't they have children that live in the affected area? I mean, don't they live in the affected area?
This is what I think about every day, even going down to my local city council that I go to on a regular basis. These people that are sitting on our councils, we have to understand, I've been doing a lot of research on them as well, and a lot of these people that are on our city councils have vested interest in pursuing all this stuff. So I have that disconnect because I don't understand why they're not getting the health effects of this. I've sent them plenty of information, and I've said plenty of things about the health effects of these things, and they just seem to ignore me.
That doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I get a document that crosses my desk that talks about what you're talking about, I'm going to pay attention because it doesn't just affect me, it affects my loved ones. And to me, are they suicidal? Do they have some kind of cloaking device that they're able to shield themselves from this danger from? Help me understand this, Virginia.
Well, all I know, I've talked to several of these experts about shielding, and a lot of them do not recommend to do this, Dave, because a lot of times you can actually, if you do a lot of shielding inside your home, you can actually trap the emissions inside your home, and even wearing some of this body, unless you can get clothing that is completely, covering your body, then you're okay, but a lot of people will buy shielding material and put them in their hats and that kind of thing, and sometimes you can trap these things, so you have to be really careful about what you're doing, and the utilities know this. It's beyond belief to me why these people would allow this to happen, but I've looked at documents from Colorado State University, even the city documents that I can look up online. A lot of their documents will actually state that there could be health concerns over these, so they're aware of it, and I don't understand the mindset behind it.
Here is where we can begin to connect the dots and begin to grasp the power and the real dangers lying behind this technology. Although millimeter waves allow more room to transport signals, the range of this area includes a major threat. The video indicated the 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz range, but I have been informed by a physicist friend of mine living in Sweden that the 300 to 100 gigahertz range is ideal for mind control. However, because millimeter waves have more difficulty passing through solid structures, another technology is necessary. The video suggested small cells, and as you have heard, this can include anything with the word smart in front of it. If you have smart devices in your home, then you are a potential target to be bombarded with mind control frequencies. With beam forming, it seems that the ability to target may be a bit easier. Therefore, if the global cabal wants to start a riot or create some kind of false flag event, I might speculate that people could be mind-controlled into doing things they would not normally do when exposed to the appropriate messages within the frequencies that are optimum for mind control. The blog site Mind Control in Sweden has posted an 8-minute excerpt of a video by Josh Del Sol. Del Sol is an award-winning producer of the documentary Take Back Your Power that exposes the dangers of smart meters, and he has done another video giving more information about the dangers of 5G technologies. The following is an excerpt from this 8-minute video, and it includes a press conference given by Tom Wheeler, the current chair of the U.S. Federal Communications Commission, FCC, and he is a former senior lobbyist for CTIA, the association that represents all the companies associated with the U.S. wireless industry. Listen carefully to his comments and to various responses from reporters.
Hey guys, it's Josh Del Sol. For those of you that are on a mailing list, you know that we're in the latter stages now of the follow-up project to Take Back Your Power. And I just want to ask you something. Have you ever felt compelled to do something? Well, it was like that for me with Take Back Your Power. It's like that for me with this follow-up project. And it's also like this about this video that I'm just about to share with you now. I've taken a couple days in the past week and put this edit together of something which the world really needs to know about. And that's how the FCC is planning and have already approved 5G technology. Now, I know what you're thinking. 5G technology is just the next level of evolution in cell phone communications, and we're just going to have better bandwidth and be able to have support for more applications and so forth. But if you've seen Take Back Your Power, you know that there are very, very very serious health risks associated with the proliferation of wireless technology, be it smart meters, be it cell phones, cell phone towers. Thousands of studies indicate harm. So with this 5G, there are some very, very serious things to be concerned about, both from a health standpoint and also from a surveillance and rights standpoint. So this piece that you're about to watch is getting into something that the world needs to know about.
The big game changer is that 5G will use much higher frequency bands than previously thought viable for mobile broadband and other applications. Such millimeter wave signals have physical properties that are both a limitation and a strength. They tend to travel best in narrow and straight lines, and they do not go through physical objects as well. But brilliant engineers have developed new antennas that can aim and amplify signals. Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. I'm confident that the actions will lead to a cornucopia of unanticipated, innovative uses and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important, because it means that U.S. companies will be the first out of the gate. And that is why 5G is a national priority. And stay out of the way of technological development. Unlike some countries, we do not believe that we should spend the next couple of years studying what 5G should be or how it should operate. The future has a way of inventing itself. Turning innovators loose is far preferable to expecting committees and regulators to define the future. We won't wait for the standards. We're already seeing the industry gearing up to seize this opportunity. Verizon and AT&T tell us they'll begin deploying 5G trials in 2017, and the first commercial deployments they're talking about are expected in 2020. And we're not done. As part of our July 14 action, we also plan to ask for comments on opening up other high-frequency bands. Many of the high-frequency bands that we will make available for 5G currently have some satellite users, as well as some Defense Department applications, or at least the possibility of future satellite and defense users. This means sharing will be required between satellite and terrestrial wireless, an issue that is especially relevant in the 28 gigahertz band. But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way. If something can be connected, it will be connected. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers. We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole provenance of urban areas. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country. A lot more antenna siting decisions by local governments and tightened our shot clock for siting application reviews. America's local governments will play an important role in determining how we fulfill this national priority. You can be sure of only one thing. The biggest Internet of Things application has yet to be imagined. Tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important. Ask a question. We'll start with you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
You needn't egg me on this one. Moments ago, I was attempting to talk to some people who came to attend the meeting and have concerns about radiation and 5G. And one of your security force intervened, told the guy he couldn't show me the T-shirt that he had wished to display at the meeting, forced him to put it away, and confiscated my FCC-issued ID. Is this consonant with the discussion that ought to be taking place here, and what's your reaction to this action by your staff?
I've just heard about it for the first time, Todd. I mean, obviously this is an open meeting, and I'm sure that if your credentials have been mistakenly taken, you will get them back. But there's a responsibility for everybody who comes here to behave responsibly.
According to whom?
By approving the Spectrum Frontiers Order, the United States becomes the first country in the world to identify and open up vast amounts of high-frequency spectrum for 5G networks and applications.
It seems Wheeler is not exactly correct in that assessment, and I will tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment.
This is the most significant step yet. And our BDS proceeding is dealing with that issue.
Lydia. Hey, Tom, with the
Hi, Lydia.
study showing wireless causes cancer subthermally, how can we proceed with more wireless expansion with our 60 standards only recognizing thermal effects, ignoring thousands of studies showing cancerous effects, neurological effects, reproductive harm?
Lydia, do you have a question?
I do have a question, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
I'll answer your question, Lydia.
Lydia Bayud, Bloomberg BNA.
I'm not sure about you, but my skin was starting to crawl listening to Wheeler's voice and his statements. As you heard, he deliberately ignored the question about the risks. He was pre-selling the information and control aspects of 5G without admitting that it is a mind control electromagnetic weapons system. Once one's brain signature is known and recorded, like a fingerprint, any individual can be targeted within a group of millions, and only that individual would be affected. It could be interpreted as a more modern version of the MK Ultra program. What you may have sensed in his words is a tone of controlled opposition. According to the CTIA website, CTIA was founded in 1984 in Washington and represents the U.S. wireless communications industry and the companies throughout the mobile ecosystem that enable Americans to lead a 21st century connected life. CTIA also supports numerous important industry initiatives, such as growingwireless.com, to provide parents with tools and information to educate themselves so they may teach their kids how to use wireless technology responsibly. And they also support accesswireless.org, a resource for consumers to research and find information on accessible wireless products and services. CTIA vigorously advocates at all levels of government for policies that foster continued wireless innovation and investment. CTIA also coordinates the industry's voluntary efforts to provide consumers with a variety of choices and information regarding their wireless products and services. Looking at the list of officers for CTIA, one sees company names like Sprint, US Cellular, Asurion, Samsung, and AT&T. Looking at the board of directors, one sees companies like Samsung, Assurance Solutions, Leico, Apple, Sprint, Asurion, Nokia, GM OnStar, LG Electronics, Ericsson, Verizon, Intel Corporation, and numerous others. Can you begin to imagine what might happen if GM OnStar starts transmitting 5G signals to people driving? They no longer need to hijack a car. Just mess with someone's mind and the individual will do it all him or herself. At this time, it is unclear whether everyone would be affected by these frequencies if one learns how to properly protect oneself with frequencies, or if one is able to identify and create the exact opposite frequencies being used. It may, therefore, be possible to stop or negate the effects of 5G. Now, earlier I told you that I would come back to the comment that 5G would be available in 5 years. You also heard Tom Wheeler say that the U.S. was going to be the first country with this technology. That was incorrect. This week's newscast was prepared in Sweden, and I can tell you that it has already been rolled out in Sweden. Part of this newscast was in fact written on internet networks using 5G. A personal friend of mine, as I mentioned earlier, trained as a physicist and extremely knowledgeable to all that is being committed in Sweden against its own population, lives in Stockholm, and he told me back in March that Sweden is one of the most mind-controlled societies in the world. It has gotten to the point where the public itself maintains the mind control through political correctness, a fear of being different, a hatred of innovations and creativity, equality for Muslim terrorists, moreover than their own concern for senior citizens, and so forth. What this means, essentially, is that no more technological mind control is needed because the people themselves are all Manchurian candidates in a soft way. With 5G having already been rolled out in Sweden, the people have now become unknowing guinea pigs, and the results of various tests will be monitored closely by the interests in the US and other countries. The Swedish people will embrace it, being the technologically advanced and technology-hungry nation that it is. I feel pretty confident in saying that I expect certain attacks and incidents to take place in Sweden over the coming months as the technology is tested on the minds of people and how they react to it. These results will form the foundation for how it is rolled out in the US and other countries. What I am saying is this: the fact that this agenda appears to have been accelerated and is currently in use in Sweden suggests that the Swedish people are guinea pigs and in what can happen when these frequencies are triggered in the populations there. Although not yet confirmed, there is cause for suspicion that recent violent outbreaks across Sweden related to migration may also have been part of a mind control test. It is time for the general population to become aware very quickly of the dangers of different types of technologies being used against humanity, including smart meters, transmission lines, Wi-Fi, mobile telephony, technologies, and others. Although there may be a certain appeal to having smart devices for pleasure, work, or in the home, I cannot stress enough that these devices represent tools for a desperate global cabal to reclaim whatever control they think they once had over humanity and the planet. I can only gently offer my suggestions that listeners avoid as many smart devices as possible, and I am now observing the irony of that statement, as I have recently been gifted an older, unused smartphone to replace my older cell phone that broke. I see the benefits that this phone has offered me, but I am also very aware of the dangers that this phone may represent in the future. The show transcript with all relevant information for those choosing to learn more or to share with others, including the original trailer for the documentary Take Back Your Power, and also CVN's earlier report on 5G from March 24th. Many people have had various experiences that are linked to what we call intuition. Those who are not familiar or comfortable with this concept may be so inclined to call such experiences coincidences. More spiritually awake and aware people are familiar with a term known as synchronicity, the aligning of a desired event at a needed or meaningful time. During these rapidly changing and arguably critical times, as the global cabal attempts increasingly more events to keep humanity separated, distracted, in debt, and in fear, as well as sick, it is becoming more and more important for one to learn to listen to one's intuition or inner guidance, to lead oneself to whatever one may need in any moment, and this may also include one's own personal safety. Although there are numerous videos on YouTube dealing with intuition, I have chosen two particular videos to share this evening that are short enough to give an introduction to the topic, and perhaps may lead some of you who are resonating with this information at this time to pursue one's own practice in developing this gift that is within each of us. This first video from the Heart Math Institute explores the heart's intuitive intelligence as a path to personal, social, and global coherence.
Most people know what it feels like to be in a state of harmony and flow, where our hearts and minds are working together, and there's a genuine connection with others involved. It's easy to love this experience of synergy, but oftentimes this happens by chance, rather than by design or intention. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to produce this flow on demand in our day-to-day communications, projects, and challenges? Research shows that when we shift into a coherent state, the heart and brain operate synergistically, like two systems that mesh into one. We can learn how to activate and sustain the synergy between the heart and brain and prevent stress-producing patterns, along with increasing our mental clarity and discernment capacity. When we do this, our creative solutions for personal, social, and global challenges become more accessible, providing us with more intuitive access and flow. Over the past 20 years, the Institute of Heart Math has produced coherence-building techniques that are intentionally simple and based on scientific research. Our mission theme is to simplify a process for intuitive connection to the soul's wisdom and guidance for unfolding who we truly are. New research suggests that our energetic or spiritual heart is an access point for our natural inner technology, the heart's intuitive intelligence, which can elevate our communications, decisions, and choices to a much higher level of effectiveness. One interesting finding from our research is that when people hold genuine core heart feelings such as appreciation or compassion, it naturally increases their heart coherence. We use the term energetics to refer to the systems that we can't see or touch. For example, our thoughts, emotions, and intuitions. The mind and heart feelings are energetic sources that underlie our thoughts and emotions. They're primary drivers of our biological systems and have a powerful influence on our behaviors, choices, and results. The intuitive energetic heart is what people have associated with their inner voice throughout history. From our perspective, the energetic heart communicates a steady stream of intuitive information to the mind and brain, which in most cases we only use a small percentage of, because our ego choices overrides the intuitive suggestion. Access to our heart's intuition varies among people, yet we all have it. As we learn to slow down our mind and attune to our deeper heart feelings, our natural intuitive connection can occur. Intuition is like energetic gold. Intuitive insights often unfold more understanding of ourselves, others, issues, and life than years of accumulated knowledge. That's why the state of coherence is rapidly gaining interest. In this state, more and more people are reporting increased access to their heart's intuitive guidance, realizing it's within them, and with a little practice, it's easier to access than they thought. Research conducted in our laboratories has confirmed that when an individual is in heart coherence, the heart radiates a more coherent electromagnetic energy field that can benefit people, animals, and the environment. A growing body of scientific evidence suggests that when there is coherent group cooperation, it results in increased flow, effectiveness, and the potential for higher outcomes. It seems as though the group participants are not only in sync, but are communicating on an unseen energetic level. Our personal coherence can benefit our families, co-workers, friends, pets, and more, simply by our presence. From our research, we know that heart coherence is not an idle state. It reaches out, it influences and supports others in many beneficial ways. Scientific evidence provides support for a global field environment that connects all living systems and consciousness. Many scientists believe that a feedback loop exists between all humans and the Earth's energetic systems. We are working together with other initiatives to realize the increased effectiveness of collective intention and cooperation. There are growing numbers of organizations with tools and techniques that facilitate increased heart connection and collaboration with others. This evolves into a collective opening of the heart, which is a major step towards increasing social and global coherence. We call this heart-based living. IHM, through its Global Coherence Initiative project, is strategically placing 14 sensors around the world to measure the Earth's magnetic resonance. This global network will enable our scientific inquiry into the interconnections between the Earth's magnetic field and collective human emotions and behaviors. Science has shown that the Earth's magnetic field affects humans in profound ways, but our intention is to study how humans, as a collective, affect the Earth's magnetic field environment. Every individual's energy contributes to the global field environment, and each person's thoughts, emotions, and intentions affects the field. A first step in increasing the coherence of the field environment is for each individual to take responsibility for their own energy. We can do this by becoming more conscious of the thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that we are feeding the field each day. Our hypothesis is that as enough individuals increase their heart coherence, it leads to increased social coherence. As a critical mass of cultures and nations become more harmoniously aligned, this can eventually lead to increased global coherence and sustainable peace. Doc Childre, the founder of HeartMath, puts it this way: as more of humanity practices heart-based living, it will qualify the rite of passage into the next level of consciousness. Using our heart's intuitive guidance will become common sense based on practical intelligence.
A more recent video offered by Kerwin Ray, published on YouTube on May 11th of this year, explores more how intuition works. Ray notes on the YouTube page that a lot of people have heard about the importance of trusting your intuition and trusting your gut. However, many people miss out on how our intuition actually works.
One of the greatest things that you could do when it comes to growing your business is learn, practice, develop your intuition.
For those of you who don't know, I had a stroke in 2009, 3-centimetre right parietal, nearly killed me. I had a 15-second memory, so I had no short-term memory whatsoever. I lost the ability to communicate properly. So I just stopped listening to people because I couldn't remember what they were going to say anyway. And I just started becoming aware of the energy that people brought into me. And it was incredible because I found out very quickly that there were certain people who came to visit me that I didn't want them to visit me. Again, it was such a great gift. Like, it really taught me how to trust my intuition, because when I felt people and I knew the feeling, I'd see things like, shit, it's so true, it's so true. And every time it just proved me right, every single time. Would you like to know how? Okay, so this is how it works. This is you. Okay, you're looking very good. It's important that we understand how reality works. All life forms are basically made up or composed of atoms, which are essentially electrons that are orbiting a nucleus. So we've got two atoms here, and the two atoms communicate between their electrons. Their electrons are essentially how they communicate one with one another. But does anyone here know how the electrons communicate, what they use? They actually use Skype, because the way they communicate and go, hey, I'm vibrating at this frequency, and this one communicates with, hey, I'm vibrating at this frequency. They go, oh, we're attracted, let's get together. That's a really basic 101 way of explaining it. But they use what's called a messenger particle, and the messenger particle is actually composed of light, and it's called a photon. So the photon is what is used, or light waves are what is used to communicate between atoms. Does this make sense? Okay, so here's where it gets freaky deaky. Your body is constantly releasing what is called biophotonic energy. And those photons are constantly communicating and sending information to every single atomic particle around you. And by the way, this explains many aspects of psychic behavior, and I hate the term psychic, I'm going to call it intuitive. Has anyone here ever been in an environment where someone has walked into the room, and as soon as they've walked into the room, you've gone, there's something about this person I don't like? And then they open their mouth and you go, I knew it! Who's had that happen before? Look around the room. Now, who's ever been in a situation before where you've been walking along, all of a sudden you've thought about someone, and then literally the phone has rung and they're ringing you? Do you know why you knew that they were calling? Because their intention got to you before the telephone signal did. So it's very hard to deny this phenomena when you've all experienced it, but many of us, especially the analytical people, they want to justify it as some form of basic coincidence. And it's not. This is how life works. There's two reasons people don't listen to their intuition. Number one, there's too much fucking noise. Or number two, they don't trust it. But what we need to understand is that our intuition plays a much bigger game than we do. And sometimes people will trust their intuition, which leads to something bad, and they go, oh, well, shouldn't trust my intuition. And the intuition is going, are you idiot? You don't understand. I'm playing 5 to 10 years ahead of you. I'm giving you that because that's what you needed. And you now think because you trusted your intuition you made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. I just gave you what you needed. Now you don't trust me anymore? Your intuition is playing such a bigger game than you right now because it is literally connected to every form of intelligence that is available in your sphere right now. So your intuition is what is coming in. That's the information that you receive from your environment. That's the information that is present. But it is also constantly sending information. That's your intention. Have you ever met someone before and they walk in like, wow, and they don't even open their mouth. They go, there's something about this guy that's really, I just like the feel. Does anyone have that? You can be that person. You can be that person. Just be aware. Have the intent. Bring presence into a meeting, not frenetic energy. Because most people, when they come into a meeting, they've got emotional charge and nervousness. Again, when I interview people, most of the times I don't even look at their resume. I just sit there and feel them.
As you heard moments ago in the previous story, the introduction of the 5G network is anticipated to be a highly dangerous attempt to try to control and manipulate humanity. Developing the tools to protect oneself, learning how to surround oneself with energetic barriers to block certain energies and frequencies may be very helpful to many. Intuition may allow one to tune in to potential dangers and risks and be able to take steps to protect oneself and one's family. CVN reported many months ago on Faraday cages as a possible tool for protecting oneself, for example, although there are sources that suggest that Faraday cages do not work the way they have been claimed to work. Although many links are available on YouTube for those searching for particular information that resonate with them personally, links used for this story will appear in the show transcript. In this week's final words. In the last little while, I've heard a few people say similar messages relating to good intentions, as though this is the answer to what one may be experiencing in one's world. I have commented in the past about this word truth and how truth is relative to each individual and his or her particular worldview in any current moment of now. This truth changes as each individual grows from her or his experiences and learns, or does not learn, any relevant lessons from a particular experience. In any moment, one may believe he or she has the answer, only to find, perhaps, at another moment, that he or she did not really have the answer, or that the answer did not manifest certain emotions or experiences that one may have initially desired. Jim Carrey has been quoted as saying that, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it is not the answer." In this rapidly evolving world where truth is so incredibly vague in one's external world, the only place to find truth, therefore, is to look at one's own personal truth relative to one's worldview in any moment. So where does this take us with this concept of good intentions? I might loosely compare this term to something that a politician might say when he or she speaks of something that will be good for that country. Not always, but generally speaking, most politicians say that something may be good for a country when they really mean that it will benefit a small elite percentage of the population that will allow them to maintain effective control over the rest of the population, to suit their agenda, and not an agenda that is life-honoring for all humans, nor is it life-honoring for the planet that sustains us. What, then, is a good intention? What is the intention? Who is saying the intention? Why is she or he saying this intention? Who or what benefits from this intention? Is there potential harm intentional or otherwise, that may arise from this intention? Is the intention empowering or disempowering to oneself or to others? A soul that is acting within the global cabal may or may not be aware that his or her intentions are good or bad for those within the cabal group, just as the intentions of a soul among the general population may or may not be good for the general population or even oneself. Let us consider the story about 5G. Many people will strongly defend, perhaps even vehemently defend, the benefits of 5G. And I admit that there are benefits. However, several questions must then be explored. The only reason humans are demanding anything that is faster is because we have become socialized and addicted to a society based on debt and a need to survive within this debt. We need computers to do our jobs faster, to make corporations richer. We need faster communications technologies so we can make decisions and take actions more quickly, and so our children can reach us more quickly in emergencies. Our children are in more danger now because of this same society that we have been socialized and addicted to. We need faster technologies to prepare our food. We need faster technologies so our children can be socially accepted, and so they have something to distract themselves in the evening because parents are too tired and stressed out at the end of the day to give proper and loving attention to them. We have become the very product of our fears and our socialized addictions. The questions, therefore, are these. How much technology is enough? Artificial intelligence is already beginning to make humans redundant in many jobs. The world has now been created for corporations and the wealthy elitists, but the humans not within that circle are rapidly becoming expendable. Question 2. Would you rather live in a world with the current stresses, sicknesses, enslavement, and deaths, and be slowly killed by the current technologies, or live in a slower, possibly less advanced world with a group of people who are committed to living in ways that are as healthy, self-sustaining, and as life-honoring as possible? Each lifestyle has its own stresses and its own pluses and minuses. The question is simply, which stresses, pluses, and minuses are most acceptable to you while giving you the greatest joy and fulfillment in the current moment? What is one's intention in that moment? One may believe one has good intentions because one is using all the faster technologies in order to provide what one believes to be the best living for one's family possible. However, that good intention may end up in separation or divorce because the partners are no longer spending time together, and when they do, they only fight and argue. The children may experience health issues from their addictions to their technologies. It has been said that young children should not be exposed to such intense frequencies, and yet today, children as young as 3 are spending insane amounts of time on laptops, tablets, or other video devices, becoming addicted to games, and often those games are violent. Would this be a good intention, therefore? One who pulls one's children out of school so they do not have to be vaccinated, and they move into a spiritual, self-sustaining community that has less modern conveniences, but there is greater interaction with nature and community, and even though there may be certain stresses and even injuries that come with that lifestyle. Would this be a good intention? I have spoken in the past about the energies put out by humans, and we heard a bit about this moments ago. Our intentions carry energies or vibrations, and they lead to choices, and it comes down to one making choices that honor one's truth, in whatever capacity that soul may be serving humanity in its evolution. Each human makes choices that ultimately serve oneself or one's immediate social group or collective, be that a cabal group or a group among the general population. In a higher human or planetary consciousness, the consideration of one's choices expand beyond oneself to consider the rest of humanity and the planet. The products or services one chooses to buy or use have a reflection of how one is choosing to live. As Mahatma Gandhi has been quoted as saying, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." What are good intentions to you personally? Are one's intentions in alignment more with one's own material needs and service, or are they more in alignment with the highest good of humanity and the planet? A tough question, to be sure, but the simple answer is that there is no right or wrong answer. In a certain space of awakening, it may serve an individual to make personal choices that are more honoring to the individual than to the planet. In another space of awakening, one may be ready to make new choices that serve a higher good. The question one may be wise to consider is this: am I able to accept or live with the possible worst-case scenario consequence if it was to happen, as a result of this choice I am making? Only the individual in her or his moment of now is capable of making that choice, and it is not my place to judge another for that choice. We all do judge others for their choices, however, either intentionally or unintentionally. This is where intuition begins to come into play. As one learns to develop one's intuition, one is able to guide oneself toward the answers that are most in alignment for the highest good of that individual in that moment. This takes practice, and it takes a degree of discipline. At least, it has taken this in the past. This may be starting to change, however, and energies are beginning to appear that are seeming to help people awaken to their truths at this critical time. Create a fantastic week, or remainder of this week, until our next moment of now. So that is a sample of the unfolding higher consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is broadcast weekly from the CosmicVisionNews.com website. Links to stories used in this broadcast are published in the show transcript, which is also on the website. CVN can be followed through Minds.com, Facebook, Patreon, Unseen.is, and the YouTube channel, as well as on Twitter, Google+, and LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that everyone should become famous and do all the things they ever dreamed of doing, so that they can realize that is not the answer. Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love. Hold the vision of light and peace in your hearts, and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.